And the stage is all yours.
All right, thank
Thank
you.
on behalf of everyone.
So good morning, everyone that's here. Very brave of you. It's the first time for me to being on a digital conference. I hope it will go smoothly. So the title that I gave for my talk today was How I Tripled My Salary in 5 years. It's a bit pretentious, but it actually happened. And I feel like I wanted to share that with all the women that I know so they can maybe benefit and do the same, hopefully. And I want to start with just a quick introduction of myself and then a personal story that I think I've never told in this kind of setting. So I'm 40. I've been in Berlin for 4.5 years. In the past year and a half, I've been doing career consulting or career coaching, whatever you want to call it, and business consulting for startups in the sales area. So my background is in sales and customer success in SaaS companies and tech companies, and this is what I do best. And in the past year, I just decided to become self-employed and was doing consulting. I don't think I would have been able to be a consultant 5 years ago because I didn't think anyone would come and want to hear what I want to say. And actually 5.5 years ago, I was unemployed for a year. I wasn't able to find a job. My education is I have a BA in psychology and I have an MBA from Tel Aviv University. And on paper, it should have been quite easy for me to find a job, but that was not the case. And I finally did find a job, but I was so broke that I could hardly afford rent. And when I said that I could hardly afford rent, it meant that I could not rent my own apartment. So I slept with friends, I cat sat, all kinds of things that I had to do to actually, sustain myself while I was working. And the job that I got was quite an entry-level position at 35. And that was really depressing given the fact that I've already put so much time and effort into school and then tried to lift my career and nothing was happening. And it was really disappointing and discouraging because I felt like I could do a lot more, but it looked like everything that I was trying to do did not come out well. So it mainly felt like I do not know how to play the game. And people around me seem to know how to do it. And I think in sales, it's a bit more out there because most of the people around me were always men. And it made that gap even bigger for me. And I was really trying to understand how to do it, but every time I tried, it came out wrong. And then I decided to move to Berlin. That took a few months also because I was applying for positions, didn't get them. And I felt like I'm in this horrible loop of trying to do stuff and trying to get myself ahead in my career, but nothing is happening. And finally, I did get a job at a very cool startup doing something quite innovative. And I moved to Berlin. Was not earning a lot of money, and again, at an entry-level position. But at that point, I said, it cannot get any worse. And I think a lot of things changed after I moved to Berlin because I just decided that I have to do things very, very differently. And to make a long story short, 5 years later, I'm here. The boxes behind me, by the way, is because I am relocating in 3 days to Dublin to work for Google at a senior leadership position, which I don't think would have happened 5 years ago. So that for me, it's like a goal that I put for myself and it happened and I'm really happy. So it's not that I'm a messy person, it's actually the right kind of settings for today. And I want to share with you some of the things that helped me throughout the way. Some of them are very actionable. Some of them are a bit more abstract. But I hope that you have a takeaway from today and you can use it. And of course, you can always reach out to me later on Slack or privately on Slack and then ask me, for tips or share your personal situation. And then I can give you maybe some hints. I want to tell you that throughout the year, I helped many individuals in their career and it's been going really, really well for them. So I think that what worked for me is very much transferable to other people. And that's why I really, really, I'm really happy that I have this opportunity to share all of that with you. Of course, we're not going to cover everything in 25 minutes, but I will do my best. And then I'm here also later. So I think the first thing that I realized is that I need to, first of all, approach my career in a more strategic way. And the second thing would be to learn how to ask for things and negotiate. And that means negotiating when you are working, but also when you're getting a new job, of course. And that affects a lot of things in life. So it also affects like all my personal relationships when I know how to negotiate, when I know how to ask for things. And it makes everything, actually, my well-being is a lot better since I know how to negotiate well. Because I'm better in crisis management. I know how to compromise better because I understand, the psychology behind negotiations. So I want to start with the first thing, which is how to manage your career strategically. The first step, I would say, is to understand that if you want to make a change in your career, things are going to look very differently. If you do want to have this exponential growth and be in a very different place in 2, 3, or 5 years, you have to put that as a goal for yourself, set it as a goal, understand exactly what you want to get to, understand it's going to require some effort, some dedication. It will take its toll. So it's going to be a lot of hard work. It didn't come to me very easily. I worked very, very hard, blood, sweat, and tears to get this. But this was really important for me. And I wanted this exponential growth by the time I was 40. And on that note, I want to say that the first question that comes up when I say that to my clients, I always, but I'm looking for work-life balance. I'm also looking for work-life balance. I wanna work in a place where I enjoy what I'm doing. So when I go home, it doesn't feel like I need to disconnect so much. So that was my first aspiration, to be in a place in my career that I'm doing something that, let's say, 70-80% of the time that I'm putting into work, I actually feel that I'm enjoying it. I don't have the feeling that I need to run away from work to actually have a balance. The second thing is to realize that if you do want an exponential growth, there is not going to be work-life balance. There is going to be a lot of work. And in that sense, you have to be very strategic about it, because you need to understand what is the right timing for you to enable yourself this exponential growth. If it's before you're having a family, if it's before you are having kids, if it's after you're having kids, but when they're a little bit more independent, if it's at a time where your partner can take time off work and allow you that growth that you need. But it is going to require a lot of effort and time. And of course, you can balance it. I mean, it's not like, for 3 years, you're going to be working at 200% capacity, but you do need to understand that it would require you to put a lot of time and effort into it. It won't happen by itself. And you need to realize that, want it, dedicate yourself to that, allocate the time and the resources, make sure that you have a support system, if it's your partner or your family or friends or whatever, that everyone understand that this is your first priority right now, and make sure that this is where you put most of your energy in. It doesn't mean that you have to work 24 hours in this. I did have my boundaries and I took vacations, even long ones, but I did it at a time where strategically it was the right timing for me. It was always after I had a big achievement. After I got a promotion, I took a big vacation. After I got a big raise, I took a big vacation. After I got the job that I wanted and I finished the pulpit side, I took a big vacation. That is the right timing. Try and again, this is only if you want this exponential growth. Some people that I talk to say, oh no, but I really like working 4 days a week. And I'm at a time that work-life balance is super important for me. Okay, then unless you're very senior, it's going to be hard to progress. Not impossible, but harder, slower, requires a bit more thinking. It's possible. But this is how I achieved it. And I strongly recommend just really letting that sink in and understand that if you want this is the price. The second thing is move away from trying to change reality at your workplace. If this is the job that you have right now, instead of coming back home and inventing to your friends and saying, oh, my boss is incompetent, oh, I'm not doing whatever it is I'm supposed to be doing, I can do a lot more, I'm so much more talented, this is not what they promised me, they said it's going to be something completely different. Try to use that reality to make a difference in your life. Use that. I mean, it doesn't matter what it is. You can always use your current situation to actually grow. It could be for testing things. It could be for daring, for asking for things, for trying to do things that otherwise you'd be too scared to do. It could be to practice your negotiation skills. It could be to practice your project management skills, to try to take more ownership. It's a great space. Once you have, when you're secured in your job, it's a great space to actually test stuff. And try to move away from just complaining, and instead try to think about the problems that you're having and how would you solve them. And then go to whoever is in charge and say, I have a problem, this is a problem, and this is how I suggest to solve it. So you might get a no, which is, again, practice, because you did practice on how to come up with a project, take ownership, etc. And that person might say yes, and then you have a project. Which is something you can actually write down then on your resume and say, I was the owner of this, I initiated it, I came up with the idea, I made it happen, and here are the results, or here are my failures, and this is what I've learned from it. And it adds so much more to your personal story when you want to go to that next job and actually portray yourself as somebody who can take more ownership. And that is another thing that you can do to actually gain that exponential growth. For women especially, I always try to push a little bit more to be daring, especially when you need to talk or to speak in front of other people in a group, in a meeting. Just dare to do what a dude would do. So a lot of men, they say things in meetings, or I don't want to say men or women, but participants in meetings, people in meetings, often say things that are not very smart, not contributing to the discussion. They don't have a problem saying that out loud. So you should not have a problem doing that as well. Yes, it's a bit weird. It does feel artificial at times and a bit robotic. And it's a muscle you need to work on, develop, and practice. Otherwise, you will not have that skill. So if you think that you would go to a coach or someone like me, and within 3 or 4 meetings, everything is going to change, it's not true. Because I can teach you everything I know. And if you don't practice that muscle, nothing would happen. So most of the work for my clients actually is that we have a session and they go home and they need to practice it for a month. They have a lot of homework to do, because this is how you actually change the course of your career. A lot of people ask me about going to meetups. I always say, yeah, meetups are great. But if you want to work on your career, do it again in a strategic way. Check the lineup, who's going to speak there, check the topics. If you feel that the person in the panel is not more senior than you, or even more junior than you, you probably don't have a lot of reason to go, because the chances that that person can contribute to you is very small. And then if you're talking about work-life balance, don't spread yourself too thin and go to meetups that do not bring you any value. Try to pick the ones where if you get in touch with the panelists, if you get in touch with the crowd, that it can actually, contribute something to your career. Of course, I also go to meetups sometimes where everyone is more junior than me, and it's okay, because I also like to share my experiences, and sometimes, opportunities comes in all shapes and sizes. But if you think about it strategically and you don't have a lot of resources, then think well before you go to a meetup and make sure it's the right meetup for you and it's aligned with the goals of your career that you've set up for yourself. Sorry, I don't have a slides on working with papers, very old school. The other thing that really helped me is look at things at the long run and not the short run. So if I would go to my manager, for example, and say, listen, I saw this problem, we have a UI issue with our platform, and I want to take ownership and work with the product manager to actually fix that. And he would say, no, I'm sorry, it's not a priority. This is the short term. And of course, I got a rejection. But for me, on the long run, I got to practice to ask for things and take ownership. And this is how you need to look at everything you do at work and how it would affect you in the long run. Am I practicing this muscle? Am I developing a skill? Have I tried something I've never tried before? Am I talking to a person and making interactions or creating allies or connections that I've never had before? Everything needs to be in a framework that I'm planning my career in the long run. And if I have this connection with this person now, maybe in 1 year I can ask a favor from this person. I cannot have this connection make this connection right now and come to that person in a week and ask for things. It doesn't work like that in the world. So try to think very, very long distance and not, oh, I'm done with this job, I have to leave now, everything needs to change for me to be able to do what I want to do and to gain that exponential growth. No, a good timeline would be, I'm starting to work on this now. In 9 to 12 months, I should see a very significant difference in my situation. I should be able to apply for a more senior position. I should be able to get that raise that I want. This is the timeline that you need to plan. That means that if you're starting a new job today, you need to start planning a week before you start the job to actually get that strategic career path for you. Working with your failures is also really important. When you had a task and you failed, when you were the owner of something and you failed, when the project you were in charge of failed, that is a great opportunity to create a short slide deck and show everyone how the planning went, who were the stakeholders, what was the outcome, what was the result of this activity, and what did you learn from it, and then come up with a few ideas on how to come out from the other side with some ideas on how to change things on follow-up projects, follow-up tasks, whatever it is. Show that you are, you're not being stopped by one failure. You have learned. This is always a work in progress. The project was, of course, meant to succeed, but now that you have failed, you actually, you do the right retrospect. You come back, you say, oh, this like 1 to 3 parts of the planning were not done properly. Looking back now, I know why it was, why the outcome was what it was, and I know how to make it better next time. And I want to share that with you because I'm not afraid of being of failing, of not succeeding, of coming up with an idea and failing, because people do it all the time. And I was really afraid of that. I think 5 years ago, I just wanted to be like a very good employee. I wanted my manager to be proud of me and to do really well. And I thought that would actually gain me a good, progression in my career. And it didn't, because it's not strategic. Strategic is actually making yourself visible. So making sure that you're actually very clear when you have a task, when you have what the results of your projects are, being very visible, talking about what you're doing. If you have a weekly meeting with your team, making sure that you come up very prepared. I still come up very prepared to every meeting that I'm having. I'm 40. I was a VP in my recent company. I'm now self-employed. I'm going to work for Google. For every meeting that I'm having with a prospect, if it's an interview, when I got interviewed by Google, when I had even updates with a recruiter, for every single meeting, I'm coming prepared. I know what is the agenda for me. I know what I want to come across like in that meeting. I know what I want to say. I know what are the action items we need to come out with from the other side. I come highly prepared, and you should do too. For every meeting, it doesn't matter who that person is. Come very prepared. Understand that it's not just about, people often say, oh, I don't like meetings, it's a waste of time, it's so tiring, people don't know how to manage meetings. Yeah, a lot of people don't know how to manage good meetings. They don't come up with an agenda. You don't know what the meeting is for. It feels like it's just for people to talk about themselves and not to work as a team. You can be the other type of person who comes very prepared, who takes control of the meeting, who could be the moderator even, who doesn't want to participate in meetings that don't have an agenda or an expected outcome. And this makes a lot of difference because it creates a lot of visibility for you. And the more visibility you have in your workplace, the better chances are that when you come up and ask for something, you would actually get it, because it would be already very clear what your contribution is and how you bring value. And this is where a lot of people are not paying enough attention. When you want to negotiate for something, you cannot just come up to your manager and ask for a raise or for more responsibility, because it needs to be justified by your accomplishments, by your skills, by your contribution, by the value that you bring to the business. And if you haven't made that visible throughout the time before the day that you're actually coming and asking for something, it's going to be very difficult for your manager to give you whatever it is that you're asking for. I know that from the two sides. I asked for things and didn't get them because my manager said, yeah, I don't see like how you deserve that. And I was also on the other side when my employees came to me and asked for things. And I said, I don't feel that you have brought more value, therefore I can give you a promotion, or therefore I don't think that I can give you the raise that you're asking for. I can maybe give you a smaller raise for, for dedication, for hitting your goals. But being a person that's very visible and very vocal about everything, about successes, about failures, about ideas, about work ethics, about meeting hygiene, about everything that comes up in the workspace, makes you somebody that's very easy to actually assess their contribution. And when you want to go to your manager and ask for more responsibilities and ask for a title, it's a lot easier for your manager also to justify that in front of their manager, because there is this person in our company that everyone knows about who's very vocal. It's very clear what their contribution is. And then it's also very easy for your manager to be your proxy in front of the person who's actually making the decision and get everything you want for them. I know that because it also helped me. When I had employees that actually followed my lead and were very visible and vocal, when I needed to ask something on their behalf, it was a lot easier for me because my manager already heard about them. They already noticed, the emails they're writing, their output, their slide decks, whatever it is that helped them understand that this person is of value to this business. Therefore, we need to keep them. Therefore, we need to give them the promotion. It really helps if you have a mentor or a champion. It doesn't have to be somebody very senior, but I also have several of them. And I don't speak to them every week or every month. I try to do that periodically just to kind of, make sure that my career is aligned with the goals that I've set for myself. But also to kind of have somebody to reflect my behavior back to me. Because I'm human and we're all human, and sometimes we just get very much caught up in how we think things should go, and me as well. And then I need somebody to give me, a different perspective and say, oh, you're approaching this the wrong way and you need to stop and rethink this, because I think that your people have been working too hard, not in the right direction. This is not where the market is going to. And sometimes it's very important to have that feedback from the outside, even though I'm a very skilled professional. I trust my instincts. I trust my experience and my skills. Having this output, that input from other people is extremely important. And it also helps very much in your career. If you have a person who's very generous with their time and their knowledge, and they can be there for you when you want to vent or share things or ask for what would be the best course of action for what it is that you want to achieve, it could make a lot of difference in your career. And I'm very grateful for all the mentors that I had throughout my career. Some of them were my really bad managers, that gave me feedback or input that was very valuable, even though they were not, the best managers. Some of them were my employees, so they were not as senior as me even, but they did give me great input about how I come across, for example, or what it is that I do well and they like, and actually helps them do their job. But finding that mentor is also extremely valuable when you want to have that exponential growth in your career. I always also suggest not to stop interviewing. I don't call it an interview, I call it a meeting. And then whenever a recruiter reaches out to you, always ask, what is the job about? Try to have a short conversation. It's extremely important to understand what's your value in the market, both like in terms of salary, but also what it is that's going on right now. I mean, I don't know, 5 years ago, there was no data scientist roles. It was called something else. I don't know, data engineers. There were all kinds of other names in the market. And then if you often speak to recruiters, you have a lot of input from the market that you can use actually to rebrand yourself. If you were an analyst before and you understand that now an analyst could be 5 different things depending on the vertical and depending on the tools you use, then you can rebrand yourself in your CV. Or you can also go back to your manager and say, I don't want the data analyst title anymore because I think the more accurate one is X. And that could actually benefit your career, because then when recruiters look up your name, they see the relevant, the current the latest title that is relevant for your career path, the direction you're aiming for. And that's extremely important. So try to be nice to recruiters. Even sometimes it feels like a waste of time. I have not stopped interviewing for the last 5 years, and it's great because I can always ask for my worth. So if my salary expectations are realistic or not. I can ask about what's happening with other companies around me that are sometimes competitors or up and coming companies that are very successful, and I can get a lot of intel from that. It's extremely nice to have those conversations. And if you do want to get that exponential growth, then it's extremely valuable to do those conversations. Otherwise, it's very difficult to speak to somebody from a competing company and get an understanding of what is happening there. Just one last point, Natalie. I see we're 25 minutes, and then we can move back to questions. Negotiating. So I mentioned at the beginning, and it's extremely important, asking for things. And again, for any conversation where you want to negotiate something or ask for something, come very, very well prepared. When I say well prepared, I mean put down on paper what it is that you want to come out of from this meeting. Like, do I want a yes, a no, a timeline, some things I need to accomplish in order to get what I want, and also a number. And make sure that you have alternatives, because it's a lot harder for somebody when you tell them, okay, I want this title or that title. And then they can say, oh, no titles. Like, no, but we have to change it because I'm not happy with how it is. So I came up with these two options. What do you think is a better one? Learning how to negotiate and vocally asking for things can take you very, very far. Coming back to the title of this talk, so this is how I wrote how I tripled it. It's actually more, but I think already tripling my salary in 5 years is a huge accomplishment. And I think that I don't think that if somebody would have told me how much I would earn today, I would have believed that 5 years ago. I thought like my life is going nowhere. I had to cat sit to actually have a roof. So I think that learning how to negotiate really changed everything for me. I dared asking for amounts that at the time I thought were obscene. I dared asking for titles that at the time I thought nobody would give me. And I realized that I've never asked before, and therefore nobody would know that I want them, and nobody would give you if you're not asking. Sometimes, yes, if your manager is super nice and you're a very introvert kind of person and they see that you're trying, maybe you would be lucky, and that would be the person that sees beyond everything and would value you and would give you something. But you can get a lot more if you ask. You can get a lot more if you do the analysis before, if you understand how much you're worth. And how can you understand how much you can ask for? By talking to the recruiters, by making sure you're keeping yourself very alert to what is going out there. It also makes you very focused on what you want in your career, because as long as you're in one organization, all you see is that company culture. All you see is your manager and how the processes are built in that company. All you know is that anchor, which is the salary that you're making now. It's very hard to imagine. If I would tell you, like, you can, if you're making 40K a year, you might be able to make 80. You would think, oh, no, that's twice as much. That's like a lot of money. Nobody would give that to me. But you might discover that, okay, maybe 80 is too much, but you can make 70 in certain companies having the same job as you're having now. But you will never know that if you don't dare to ask. If you don't put that as a target and something that you want to aspire for. I can tell you that I'm moving to work for Google because that is a goal that I put for myself a year ago. Of course, I'm very lucky, and for the past 4.5 years, I did build my career in a very strategic way, and I was preparing for that moment that I would be able to apply for a senior leadership position in a very big corporate and actually get it. But I worked for days before every interview to be ready, and I'm preparing other people. So trust me when I tell you that I can do it. Like, when you wake me up, I can probably give you tons of stories and pass an interview. I still took it extremely seriously and practiced for days. and did simulations in front of the former colleagues of mine and made sure that I come across in the exact way that I want to come across as. I didn't leave anything for chance, because there's always like at the last minute, always things go wrong, and there's always a question that you couldn't prepare for, and you're always surprised in a certain way, but you can be very ready, like 95%. And this is how the boxes are here. So I think this is it for me. I mean, I could talk about it for hours and hours, but I want to leave some room for questions, and then I'll be available on Slack. And even later, if you want to reach out to me on LinkedIn, it's also fine. I'm really happy to share my experiences and make sure that whatever it is that worked for me and transferable, I can teach others and they can benefit from that as well. That's it.
Thank you. The first question is already waiting for you in the channel. So if you can open the chat, you could read out the question and answer
Yes.
if you like it, or say next if you don't feel like it.
Yes, I mean, can everyone see the chat, or should I read it out loud?
Everybody should be able to see the chat once they click on the 3 dots that say chat.
Okay, you know what? I'll just read it out loud because it's nicer. This was very inspiring and insightful. Thank you very much. As an independent consultant, researcher, trainer, I have the following question for you. Was your exponential growth primarily down to your consultancy coaching work, or your employed career, changing employment? What is your advice to significantly advance with your consultancy work? So actually the exponential growth was mainly when I was employed, like on payroll, but I think it really helped facilitate my consultancy work. I think when you're a consultant, you really have to think long term, even more so than when you're employed. I started my business back in March of last year, 2019, but I started marketing in October. So it took me around 6 months to actually make sure that I have enough traction to start a business in a way that I can make a living out of it and I can sustain it. And I can tell you even more that, and now that I'm 1 year into being self-employed, with some leads, with some prospects, it even takes a year to solidify. You have to make sure that you're not relying on a handful of clients. You have to make sure that you have enough clients in your pipe. You have to create visibility the same as you would do when you're employed. And the most important thing I would say is that when you are working in an organization, you're very organically exposed to new technologies, to whatever is trending in the market. You can experiment a lot at the expense of the organization. When you're self-employed, you cannot do that. And that's how I see a lot of people trying to do things that are very safe, because they want to make a living. So they're trying to get the clients right now, and they're trying to get the paying clients, the big clients, the small clients, it doesn't matter what, without thinking very long term. So I think this is what really helped me in my business. I also have some of my clients are small business owners, and one of my clients actually was working with, she's giving a service, some kind of service in Germany, and she was working in B2C. And her goal for 2019 was to move from a B2C to a B2B. So to give her service just to businesses, because she felt she can make a lot more with that. And she, I think she realized, I mean, we both made a plan, and it was very clear it's going to take around a year to actually switch from working with individuals, maintaining the revenue flow, while switching to working only with businesses. So it is a little bit more challenging, but I think that those are just different challenges. And you just have to make sure that you have a place where you can actually learn what's going on, because otherwise you cannot be a consultant. You cannot be that plug and play person that comes in and gives the advice if you don't have a space to experiment. I think that's the most important thing for being an independent consultant. And second question is, this was a really inspiring talk. You touched on attending meetups and mentors. What have you done outside the workplace that you found most helpful to your growth? I think really reaching out to people and meeting them in person and trying to have conversations that are not focused on a specific goal. So I wouldn't reach out to somebody when I wanted something from them, but rather to get in touch and put them in my network. And I would always reach out with something very meaningful. So I would not just write a message on LinkedIn. It's like, hey, yeah, I see you're in Berlin or you're in London. I have a meeting. Maybe we can meet for coffee. No, I would always write something in the line of, I see that you're working for company X. I'm very intrigued about how you found a solution for problem Y. I'm going to be in London. Maybe you're free to have a coffee with me because I have a few questions on how you implemented this solution. So be very specific about the world the person is coming from, and then they're more inclined to actually help you and remember you because you were spot on. You did that 15 minutes of research on them, and you actually came up with a question, and they would want to help you. And they would remember you actually after. So when you talk about long-term plans and being very strategic, when you come after 6 months, if there is a position in that company you want to apply, that person have a good recollection of you. They remember you. They remember it was a nice experience. They remember that you came up with something very focused and you were not just there to ask for a favor. You wanted to make a connection. Third question is, how do you see the chances to find a senior leadership roles in the tech scene in Berlin? I don't want to move. Well, it depends how senior it is and depends how much time you have. Berlin is a bit of a weird market because it's quite young in terms of tech, and different things are valued here. But I think if you plan, if you plan and you're focused on what you want to get and you reach out to the right companies with the right type of profile, you can definitely get a senior leadership position. I also interviewed for a few companies here. It was just a matter of timing and who came up with an offer first and what was the most interesting offer, etc. You do have to realize that the further you move up the ladder, the more senior you are, the more compromises you have to do about what it is that you're looking for, because there are fewer opportunities available. So when you are a UX designer, you can say, all right, I only want to be a UX designer for a SaaS company that works in the US. They should be enough open positions for those types of profiles in Berlin for you to be able to at least apply to several. When you have a very senior leadership position, those positions don't become available that often. And when something becomes available, it might not be in the exact type of company that you're interested in. So if you're coming from health tech, the next position might be in HR tech, right? It might be a bigger company. It might not be a VP position. It might be a director position, even though in your previous organization you were a VP. So you need to be very opportunistic in that sense and constantly talk to people and make sure that when something comes up, when they are ready to hire, your name comes up. So be in touch with the senior leadership of the organizations that you're interested in, and make sure you're on top of things. Make sure your CV is constantly updated. Like once a month, update your CV if you're on that strategic career path. I think that's what really helped me. And by the way, I teach that to everyone that I ever managed. We had a session every month to kind of go over their accomplishments and make sure it's updated in their CV. So when they are ready for that next opportunity and it comes along, they don't have to spend 1 minute in updating that CV. They just send it. It's quite aligned with what they want to look for, with what they want their next job to be. It takes away a lot of the stress and the energy in this process. And there is a lot of stress and energy investment and resource investment. So the more you put it into like sort of a routine kind of thing, it can really help you achieve your goals. Because then you have just all that energy available to invest in, preparing for meetings and making connections. You don't have to be super stressed when things don't go very well and you already want to leave your job or you want to apply for a position and your CV is like outdated. And that's also part of, being very strategic about your career path. I think we're done, right, Natalie?